This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Audible. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Thursday, October 13th, 2022, and I have Cam Bunton here of Pocket-lint. Hi, Cam. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm awesome. It's the week of the Pixel reviews, so we're going to talk more about Pixel. But there's a bunch of news items. Also the week that somehow Microsoft chose to announce all the new Surface stuff on the same day as the Pixel embargo. I guess they didn't know that. And then, of course, Facebook did the same thing too, right?
Yeah, there was lots of announcements this week, so it's just been one of those busy weeks. But then it is October, right? We're used to this by now.
Techtober.
Techtober.
Yes. So basically what I want to talk to you about first is the watch, because I have one. I'm reviewing it for Hot Hardware. Yeah, you're also wearing an Apple Watch. You got to show that to the Patreons.
Yeah,
right?
I'm wearing.
You're double fisting, as they like to say.
Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts about this watch. Most of them are pretty good, but there's a few things I'm not on board with. Can you tell us what your thoughts are?
Yeah, I think maybe we feel the same. I think on the one hand, it's a really nice watch. It's what the interface and the software and everything we've been waiting for from Wear OS for many years. But then there are things like the battery life, which just doesn't really seem good enough at the moment.
I would agree. This is my biggest gripe right now with this thing.
Yeah.
I feel like, okay, let's rewind a bit, because I am one of those people who traditionally uses one of those fitness bands on steroid watches on Android, like the ones that are essentially dumb, that don't have apps, but that have a complete suite of notifications, fitness and health features, and look like a watch, but are really just a fitness band. So because of that, they have an OLED display, they have a nice big battery, but they have that low power real-time OS, that low power processor. And you typically, with always on display, with wearing it at night, get a week or sometimes 2 weeks of battery life. So coming from that, it's very painful, right?
It's funny because I'm in a very similar position, because most of this year I have worn the Garmin Epix 2.
Oh my God, yeah.
Which is exactly what you say. It's about 1 week on battery life. It's got an OLED screen, but in terms of smartwatch functionality, it's quite limited. But the sports and fitness and the tracking and the data that you get from it is really, really good.
Right.
So coming from that to a Pixel, which you have to charge every day, was a bit of an adjustment.
Right. But at the same time, I have lived with the Galaxy Watch, the original, for I think over a year and a half. And I have tested and tried the Apple Watch for, several weeks at a time in the past. I believe the one I played with was the SC, the original SC, and then I think I played with a Series 5 or something like that back in the day. The bottom line is I'm not completely clueless to the other world of smartwatches that are really smart, that have the assistants we want, that have the payment systems we want, that have, the ability to do great voice transcription and all that good stuff. I'm on board, but even an Apple Watch has better battery life, it seems, than this. Yeah?
Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely agree. It's the one watch I've used probably in the last, since the first Apple Watch came out, where I'm literally charging it at the same time every single day.
I can't even get a day out of it right now. At first I had the always on display on, and I quickly learned that was a very tragic mistake. So I have stopped doing that. But at the same time, I am finding that it's like I can't do heads or tails of it. I'm trying to track my sleep right now. And that's probably a mistake number 2, is that I don't think that's possible unless you are very vigilant and charge it fully when you wake up in the morning. Because here's the thing, you need 30% battery life before you go to sleep for the sleep tracking to work. And I woke up this morning with, 3%, 4% after sleeping 7 hours. I'm like, you can't, for people who sleep 9 hours, you can't even get a full night's sleep. I went to bed with something like 35% battery life. So I think their 30% is an absolute minimum, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's one of those things, my lifestyle kind of fits in with it. I just made a schedule for charging. So I would sleep it. I would sleep with it at night time, and then I would do the school run, walk my daughter to school in the morning, and then I'd come home, sit behind my desk, and I would charge it for an hour, and that would pretty much go from 30% to 100 within that hour.
Got it.
Then I would take it off and then use it for the rest of the day, sleep with it, and then 10 o'clock the next day goes back on charge.
But are you tracking sleep then?
Yes.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
okay.
I am tracking sleep.
So the other thing I found with tracking sleep is last night I forgot to turn on you don't have to do anything. Technically, it'll track your sleep. This is one of the wonderful things. Like a lot of these, fitness bands on steroid watches I've been using, they auto track and it's awesome. But you do have to put your watch on some sort of do not disturb. You don't want it waking you up with little knocks on your wrist. So there's a setting for that. It's like sleep mode or whatever. Yeah, and I forgot to turn it on last night. And guess what, Cam? It did not count my sleep until in the middle of the night when I turned it on, which is really weird. Also, I woke up with the code being displayed, like you need to unlock your watch. Now, it's on really nice and tight. I have no idea how it would have untightened itself to the point where it thought I wasn't wearing the watch anymore.
Huh. Mine's been fine in that regard. I haven't experienced that at all.
Right. What I'm saying is that I'm having some reliability issues on the sleep tracking end of it. So it says I slept 2.5 hours, but I look at the data and it said started counting at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. or something. And I woke up at 9, so that makes sense. But that's not accurate. I know I went to bed at 1 a.m. and I slept like a baby. It was a great night. I feel super rested today. So this is a bummer because, I can't say that I haven't had issues with sleep tracking on other watches. I have sometimes, but usually those, I hate to say them, but I'm going to categorize them as a whole as the Chinese watches, the Honor, the Huawei, the Xiaomi, even the OnePlus, which is one of those dumb watches, right? The OnePlus with all the software updates is actually working pretty well now. But even all of these, I feel I'm much more reliable at doing all the things that I expect them to do, even though they do a lot less. Am I happy to have Google Assist on my wrist? It works reliably? Absolutely. Do phone calls sound great on the watch? Yeah. Do I have Google Pay and it works? Yeah, except again, usability thing. Here's the thing, Cam. You tell me what you think. On my Pixel, I unlock with my fingerprint. I can leave the screen unlocked for like the 30-second timer or whatever until it locks again. I can chit-chat with the barista and tap the phone without looking and it pays, right? Because usually in that little bit of window where I've unlocked with the thumb on the fingerprint sensor and it's ready to go. I thought I could just tap the watch because I'm like, it knows it's on me. Like it would lock if I wasn't wearing it. But no, you have to double tap the crown or go in the little notification tray thing and turn on what's the freaking point of that? It's faster for me. My phone's in my hand already.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, and I don't think even that's maybe even the worst part. I think the more awkward thing is having to turn your wrist at this sort of angle and try and tap your wrist on the machine. I always find it really uncomfortable. I don't know if that's the same.
No, I think you're right. I agree. So I just got a coffee from my friends at La Lucha just around the corner here in San Francisco. And just before we started the show, and I was intent on paying with the watch again, and I completely forgot. Force of habit. I just pulled my phone, had the finger on the screen before it was out of my pocket. It was unlocked, and I tapped the thing, and I was like, oh, I was going to use my watch. And no, I did not use my watch. So I'm not sure. I feel torn because that's the one thing that I was looking forward to, right? Like the one thing I don't like about the Chinese watches is no assistant, no Google Pay. And now I have Google Pay and the assistant and I'm still not happy. Like it's still not feeling quite right. The assistant is amazing though. The assistant works
absolutely.
Super well. Dictation works super well. I have to say, like, let's talk about some positive. The design is gorgeous. It's too small for my wrists, I think.
Same. I said exactly the same. Yeah.
I feel that a lot of people have no idea how big or how small actually this watch is. Like in the ads and all the press materials, it looks like the perfect size. But then you put it on big wrists like us and you're like, this looks a little janky, right?
Yeah, it looks small, especially like I said, when you've been wearing an Epix, like a Garmin Epix, which is quite a chunky watch.
Or an
And then
Apple
you go
Watch
to the
Ultra.
big size,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, there's too much space on my wrist. I don't like it.
Yeah, I feel the same. But the design is really cool. I have to say, like, I don't know how
Yeah.
durable it's going to be. Mine so far is great, but I've only worn it for 3 days because, I got mine through Team Pixel. You've had yours for probably a week or something.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly happy with the design. I think it's very unique. It looks great. People are complaining about custom bands, but you know what? You get the custom bands with, apparently the leather band comes with the regular, basically it's got the adapter. If you can actually remove the band, which is attached to the lugs, right? And it all works.
Okay, that's cool.
So, I mean, in the third party market on Amazon is going to deliver adapters any day now. I'm not too concerned about that. And unlike other people, from the first try out of the box, in my unboxing video, which I haven't posted yet, but when I post, you'll see, folks, I was able to undo and redo the band in a heartbeat. I felt it's
a really nice mechanism.
It's very nice.
I like the way it works. It sort of clicks into place, and you're like, oh, that's really pleasing. I like the sound. I like the feel. It's good.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's easier than the Apple Watch in some ways, actually.
Oh, gee, I agree with you. I was trying to change my strap earlier for my Apple Watch, and I could never press the little button in far enough for it to unleash.
Anyway,
to get the catch.
So I love the design. I think it's great. It feels good on that wrist. It feels good to tap on and play on the screen. It's got that nice finish on it. Durability, of course, is an issue because it's a lot of glass, and you're more likely to. It's only Gorilla Glass too, so. Yeah, I think
it's not sapphire crystal.
Right. Sapphire would solve the problem, but I think it's unlikely for you to crack this too easily, but scratching, Gorilla Glass actually scratches. And that, I think, wouldn't take more than probably a rock. So just be aware of that. Then again, I've seen lots of Apple Watches with wear, and they are not obviously worn. Like you have to kind of grab somebody's wrist and hold it steady for a second to see any wear marks. And I don't really think this is going to be a concern. I just wish it was bigger for two reasons. For my big wrists, but also because then the battery would be bigger. Yeah, and battery life is absolutely abysmal in this thing, as we mentioned. I feel like I think, we also should mention it's running a 4-year-old chip from the original Galaxy Watch, Exynos 9110. It's a 10 nanometer chip. And I think this might be a cost and a supply issue thing that they're using this instead of the newer chip that's in the Galaxy Watches now, or then the W5 chip from Qualcomm, which we still haven't seen a watch with. I mean, we have, but not officially available for us to test. So I feel like that's another thing. It does have a Cortex M3 coprocessor to help with low power stuff, but it seems to make no difference. Like the always-on display is supposed to be handled by that Cortex M3, and it makes a huge dent on the battery life. So turn that off, and even then, so
it's strange though because I found when I'm actually using the watch, it seems pretty responsive.
It's actually fluid. Very, very smooth. Yeah, they've really optimized the software. This is definitely the best Google Wear experience to date. I feel that. Because Samsung locks you into using their phones and the health app and all that stuff, I'm not too happy with that. Although I love my Galaxy Watch, the original, the Tizen one. The battery life on that was a good 2 days for me, which was really impressive. But it was the big model, right? So bigger battery. Yeah. I still feel like this is a more universal, properly smart, Android-friendly smartwatch for anyone running Android. But I think it's a Gen 1 product. And I hate to say this because how long has it been since Google's been making Wear OS and Google Wear? Right. Oh, man.
It's like 8 or 9 years ago with I think we saw the first the LG watches and the Samsung watches. Was it 2014, somewhere around there?
It feels longer than that to me. But the bottom line is I don't think, and also $350 is a lot of money, guys. When you can get an Apple Watch SE now, right? And the second gen SE is out. My spouse has an SE and they love it. And I don't think they need more than that. And I think the average Apple user doesn't need more than an SE. So now what does it bring us to in Android land? Are you going to say, well, there's the Galaxy Watch, whatever, the 5, which is cheaper, $280 US. But I'm thinking to myself, like, again, you have to have a Samsung phone. You're locked in. So that's not really universal. So there's no other choices. So I would say my recommendation is live with one of those fitness bands or a Fitbit or one of those, if you have one, like a OnePlus watch or an Honor watch or a Huawei Watch GT. The GT lines is incredible. I love that watch line. Also, they're really nice watches. Like physically, like aesthetically. I think live with that for another year until we get maybe a Pixel Watch 2 that kind of has a better processor, better battery life, and smooths out something. The other thing I want to bring up, and I want your opinion on this, Cam, is the whole Fitbit thing drives me nuts. It pisses me off to no extent. I have not tried this, but I'm willing to reset my watch and see what happens if I don't install Fitbit and if the Google Fit stuff is enough. Because here's the thing. I cannot believe you have to install a second app in a Google ecosystem where you need a separate login. That's not your Google login. What the F?
Yeah, I think it's that they're bringing it in, aren't they? The Google login's coming.
I know, but I thought that was already achieved. I'm like, clearly by now. It feels literally, guys, if you're like somebody, I'm not that person, but if you are that person that works out and is fit and really tracks their health accurately, all these features are in Fitbit. Like you can't track sleep without Fitbit. You can't get an ECG without Fitbit. It's kind of ridiculous that you have to install this wart. It feels like this disgusting. I hate the software. Piece of crap software. Another app on your phone to get the functionality you need. And it's completely not integrated. I still, to this moment, 3 days in, have no idea what Google Fit is tracking, what Fitbit is tracking, if both are tracking the same thing, whether maybe my battery life is caused because I have both apps installed. I have no idea what's going on.
That's really interesting because I don't even have Google Fit on mine. It wasn't there when I powered it on.
No, I put it on because I use Google Fit. This is the one thing I use because a lot of the Chinese smartwatches I have integrate with Fit. The apps for them, like say, do you want your data to go to Fit? And I say yes because I have everything in Fit then. And my phone has Fit. It doesn't come with it, but I did put it on there because it actually does a very good job if you just have your phone in your pocket with an Android phone to keep track of steps, to keep tracks of the basic stuff. So I'm just confused. I just don't know what my watch is really doing, what data is going where. And I need to talk to Google about that.
So I went into it with the feeling of I know this has got Fitbit on it, so I'm going to try it out and see what it's like. So for me, it was more, this is what's on there, so I'm going to use it. And I do run like 2-3 times a week and do kettlebells and stuff. So it's actually quite useful for me, especially with it tracking the sleeping and then telling me how ready I was for my next workout and if I've recovered. It's got some useful features in there. But again, you do have to install it extra onto your phone. It's not integrated that way.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I think it gets the job done. Like I think I wouldn't want to remove it now that I've used it, the sleep track and all that. But I'm just feeling like it's such a kludge. It's such a, I don't understand. It's so not Google-like. And I know it's going to get integrated, but the app feels so foreign, so different. And I've never used a Fitbit, so I don't know.
Yeah, same. This was my first experience. The thing that annoyed me more was that seeing that some of the features that I'm used to having as standard on a Garmin, you had to pay extra for with Fitbit.
Well, that's the other thing. You need a premium subscription to get the good stuff.
Yeah, all the good stuff's locked behind the premium. And so, I mean, obviously you get 6 months for free, but then what happens when your 6 months is up? You have to pay extra to have this, something that's supposed to be a core functionality of the watch. That's
very un-Google-like, in my opinion. I mean, Google has definitely been charging us more for stuff like storage on Drive, on Photos. A lot of the freebie stuff has gone away. And they did kind of, did a bait and switch by giving us all that stuff for free for very long. And I know I'm paying quite a bit for keeping all my photos in Google right now because I went full resolution on everything. But I feel, I don't know, the setup process was, like, you have to understand, for those of us on Team Pixel, we did not get briefed by a Google person. We did not have a Google person we could email to ask for clarifications on things. So I'm kind of going by other people's reviews, by my own personal experience, consulting with some of the media that I know that have the Google official PR relationship. And it's kind of like, I don't know. I am left in the dark about half of the things. Like the setup process seems so convoluted. Okay, so I knew I'd have to install the Wear app, and I thought from there it would just take care of everything. So then I realized, oh no, I have to install the Fitbit app. Oh, and I have to log in and create an account. I even thought, okay, this is the minimum I was expect. You know how you can use Google to log in to certain services? Like you get that option, like use your Google account. That's not even there on Fitbit. Like I'm not even asking for complete integration where it's like the same, like as say, Google Drive, where you log in with your Gmail and Drive works. I'm not even asking for that. I'm just saying, wouldn't it be nice to give me the option to connect it to my Google account, log in for the authentication to the Fitbit stuff? No, I had to go in, put an email address, put a password. And then ECG didn't work and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, where's the ECG feature? I don't see it anywhere. So then I actually got somebody to mail me the reviewer's guide, the one you guys got.
Oh, yeah.
That the Team Pixel people never got. And I'm reading through that and I'm like, oh my God, this is opening up so much new stuff I had no idea I could do. And one other thing is you have to download the ECG app. But get this, guys, it's not obvious. You can't just go to the Google Play Store on your phone and download the app. You have to go to the Google Play Store on the watch and download the app. Like, I'm sorry, I know this is standard Wear because I remember that from the Wear OS days, right? Like back in the day. But I've lost track. I've forgotten. And I hate the idea that the stores are kind of segregated. I feel like either the watch app, the Wear app on the phone, or the Google Play Store app should automatically let me deal with that stuff. Like I should be able to say, I want this app, make it go. App, it's on the watch now. And I know I can do that to some extent on the Wear app, but it just seemed really convoluted. I found that I was missing the camera features where you can see your viewfinder. You have to install the camera app on your watch. Yeah. How is it not detecting that I have the Pixel camera installed on my Pixel and automatically installing the camera app on my watch at setup time? Like, this is the kind of stuff that's driving me nuts about this.
That's completely understandable. I get the frustration 100%. It's like I wrongly assumed. I thought that the ECG maybe was limited to different regions, so I didn't even really look into the ECG functionality. Yeah. But then now that you say it, I'm like, maybe that it was that simple thing. Google just missed it, and it's not. I have to actually physically install the thing for it to work. Read the
manual. You'll see it's right there. It tells you how to do it. Here, another thing I haven't been able to get to work at all is Google Home. I don't know. There's supposed to be an icon when I swipe down from all the settings, and I don't see it. Yet I have the Google app installed on my watch and the Google app installed on my phone, and I have no idea why it's not working. Okay.
I have it up. It's just there on mine right at the top.
It's not.
Yeah.
On me. And yet I have Google Home devices and I have everything's logged in. I don't know. I can't figure it out. So if I can't figure it out. You would think with it being a
Google product, it should be more integrated, like you say.
That's why I'm saying I felt so frustrated after setting it up. I was like, I hope this is going to be okay. And then then I used the assistant. I was like, okay, I got it now. And then I used...
Or you see your messages thread that's got pictures and messages and it's like that's really nice.
And it's funny because I know that Apple Watch has all these things, and that's what people love about it, Siri and all the other things, right? But we have been so deprived of this good stuff on Android. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say Fossil, Wear devices. They're kind of sucky guys. Okay, they're slow, they're sluggish, they're good at looking usually design wise because it's the whole Fossil group stuff like the Guess watches and the whatever Louis Vuitton or whatever else they have brands
like
there.
The Michael Kors and Diesel.
Don't they have also Mont Blanc or whatever? I mean, the point is there's lots of choice, but they don't even come close to the Apple Watch experience. I have to say this is the closest, but it's completely not baked. I think it just needs another year or two in the oven. But the question is, will Google do that? Will they stick with it, right?
I mean, I really hope they do. But it sort of seems tacky to say something's got lots of potential because I genuinely love wearing it and using it. But it definitely needs improving, and I hope that they just refine it a bit more next year and then bring us a slightly bigger model or an ultra model that lasts for 3-4 days on a charge. Just something.
I unfortunately have a feeling that with their current partnership with Samsung on everything, sensors for the cameras, displays, and more importantly, the chipsets, we're not going to get the W5 Plus or whatever chipset, which I think is going to turn out to be the best chipset for wear once we see watch with it. I could be wrong. I have a feeling that Qualcomm has finally decided, okay, let's take this seriously after years of going like, whatever, it's wearables. Now that they can see what Wear could do, because that's the thing we have to give Google credit for, and something they did with the Nexus products, and now they're doing with the Pixel. They're really showing us what their ecosystem can do on a watch with this watch, and that is something you can't throw out the window. You really have to admit that's pretty awesome. So
yeah, it is.
If with the right chipset now, hopefully we'll see some Fossil watches that don't suck. But I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. Yeah. Anyway, should we switch gears and talk about Pixel 7 and 7 Pro?
Yeah, I guess those are a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah,
right?
let's keep it relatively short. I don't have a review, folks, yet. Cam's working on his Pixel 7. I've got a Pixel 7 Pro because Team Pixel only sent us the 7 Pro. And I haven't even set it up. I literally got it yesterday. I charged it. I did an unboxing video, which I will post. It's basically everything I expected. Like now that I have it physically in hand, yeah, it's fine. It's good. I like the new visor, blah, blah, blah. But, I can only go by other people's reviews. I will put in the show notes, of course, Cam's review of the watch. And if you finish it before Sunday, I'll put in your review of the 7.
Yeah.
And I will also put a review that Allison did at The Verge. Allison's been on the show. I think her review is really great, and it's really kind of matches my gut feeling about this product. I think it's great. I think it's an improvement all the way around. My biggest gripe as a Pixel 6 Pro everyday user is the Tensor chip sucks, especially on battery life and radio. And I will need to test to make sure that's been resolved, but every sign from every reviewer so far indicates that this hasn't been improved, and everything else is just gravy, right?
Yeah, I think so. The only thing that I had trouble with, I mean, it seems bad starting with a negative, but the only thing I had trouble with right at the beginning setting it up was the fingerprint sensor. And I was like, not again. So I had to register my thumb twice. Just to get it to work. But it seemed, since I've set it up, it's perfect. It unlocks every time. But it was just one of those things like, this is giving me flashbacks from last year when I was trying to set up the fingerprint sensor and it just would not read my thumb. I had to go through the process like 6-7 times before it was like, yeah, you've successfully done your thumb. Congratulations.
Wow. So you started frowning a little bit before you started smiling. That's never a good thing. It's the same thing with me and the watch. Okay. So I feel like, we've covered last week. I will point you folks to last week's episode for me and Stephen Shank going in great detail on all the features and functionality and changes. My gut so far is if they can improve the Tensor issues around battery life and reception, especially 5G call quality, because you have to understand, Cam, here in the US, especially those of us, the majority of us media on T-Mobile because it's the best carrier in terms of performance, not in terms of coverage, but we're pretty much either on 5G or 4G. Like there's no 3G and 2G anymore. And if you don't have good 5G, you're kind of screwed. Like you have to fall back to 4G, and 4G is relegated to kind of like, they're really trying to, for capacity reasons, have the majority of the subscribers on 5G. So they prioritize that network in terms of performance quality. And so once you have a phone like my 6 Pro, who doesn't hang on to a 5G signal as well as a Snapdragon phone, you start really hurting. You start, you have phone calls, they drop. People say, I can't hear the end of your words. Like, it's a phone. Can't you make the phone part work? Like we've been doing this for 40 years. Come on. Yeah. That doesn't sound like fun. I'm in a completely different situation because I live in quite a rural area in Wales in the UK. And in my area doesn't even have 5G yet. So we've got like 4G and we've still got HSDPA plus kicking around. Wow.
I think 2G's
I haven't seen a 3G logo or H plus logo since I was in Europe earlier this year. Like we don't have that anymore. But it's interesting because if they can fix that for me, even the Pixel 6 Pro is perfectly fine. But all the improvements that we've discussed last week. Like, are you seeing the camera improvements on the 7? Because the 7 obviously is not quite as much of a change in the camera system, except for the front camera. How's your experience been so far with that?
I think the camera thing that I noticed improvement-wise with the camera was, daytime, they're great. I mean, the previous one was great, but I think in low light performance, it just seems a little bit faster to process like nighttime mode shots and stuff. Like, it doesn't take as long. When you hit that shutter button, it's not waiting for ages before it goes, oh, this is processed now, it's finished. So I think that side of things, like, and I guess that ties in with what they said at the announcement about the new neural processors in there doing all the clever computational stuff that's been improved. So it makes sense then that their night mode and their sort of processing of images is quicker. So it ties in pretty much with what I was expecting, I think.
Have you tried the unblur feature on some old photos?
I have actually, yeah. And? I tried it. It's really cool. I mean, it wasn't even on old photos. It was on. I was trying to take a photo of my cat, and you know, when a cat sees your phone up, it wants to come. It wants to come towards the camera,
right,
to sniff it out, and you just get this out of focus blurred face. So I tap the photo unblur, and it's like really sharp, and it creates this background blur which wasn't there before.
Wow,
it's really impressive. I was surprised actually how well it worked. And you can adjust the strength if you want to, but I just left it at 100 because it looked so good.
Wow, cool.
Genuinely impressed.
I'm looking forward to trying on some of my old photos. Unfortunately, I've thrown a lot of the photos away. When I shoot and I take a photo that's blurry, I delete it. And I kind of regret it now because I'm like, there's some that I threw out knowing that was the shot, and I'm throwing it out because there's no way anything could ever fix that. Famous last words, right? Like, I should have kept those. But I'll find something. I've got a pretty extensive photo gallery. The other thing I'm excited about, of course, is more on the 7 Pro because you don't have that. But it's the new telephoto, of course, the new ability to do 2x and 10x lossless zooms. I'm looking forward to that, to testing that out. That's the big new feature in my book. And then, of course, hopefully that new sensor on the telephoto, that's a Samsung sensor, no longer Sony IMX586 with smaller pixels, 0.7 instead of 0.8, is up to the task because I've never been a big fan of Samsung sensors. If given the choice, I will always prefer an IMX Sony sensor on a phone. But I have to say that the main sensor on the Pixels, so the 6 and 7 so far series, have been awesome, right? So
they've been really
hopefully it'll hold up. And I'm looking forward to the autofocus macro functionality on the 7 Pro as well. What's the selfie experience been like? Do you see an improvement?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't take a lot of selfies, if I'm honest.
Yeah, okay.
Which seems strange.
Neither do I.
But it's like, it seems fine. I mean, but then Pixels, generally, in my experience, especially with like portrait mode,
it nails it.
It's always been good. I mean, even since like 2-3 years ago, it was like, how does it do this? Like, I get flyaways in my hair.
I know.
And still, sometimes the blur is still somehow perfect. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think Samsung does a better job with cutting off the background, but I think that the overall look of the selfies, I think that the skin tones and everything, nothing comes close to the Pixel, I think. And I took, last night, I got to see, so 2 years ago before COVID, more than 2 years ago, my spouse says, hey, honey, Pet Shop Boys, a new order, double bill. You're in? I'm like,
no way.
We're spending money on that. So we bought tickets and then COVID hit and they kept pushing the show, right? Finally, it happened last night. And my spouse was not in town because of business. And so I took one of my best friends instead, and we went, a great show, by the way. But I was taking selfies with the Pixel, a front camera on my Pixel 6 Pro because I haven't set up the 7 Pro yet. Yes, I kind of regret now not taking the 7 Pro, even barely set up just to take photos with it because that would have been a really good test of low light and telephoto because I was far back in the stadium at Chase Center in San Francisco. And every time I take a selfie with that phone, I'm just blown away. It's just like, I can't believe in this light that I got this photo just like that. And I don't think those of you who haven't experienced this can understand this. You have to grab a Pixel and try it out for yourself. You might actually like taking selfies of yourself for a change. It's a life-changing experience.
No, I genuinely agree. I think Pixel's one of those phones, I think for the past couple of years, maybe more so this time now that they've got the improved sensors and the NPU. But whichever camera you use, front or back, you just snap a photo and it just looks good.
Yeah.
You don't have to fix it really very often. There's not much out of focus stuff going on. There's not blurriness. The colors are generally balanced across the lenses. It's a great camera phone.
I think I'm biased because people ask me, like, I love OnePlus phones too. Like, I really do. Even though there's been some missteps in the last couple of years, but I rocked an 8 Pro for 1 year there, for the year that the Pixel 4 existed, because I wasn't on board with the Pixel 4. And I would totally love to have, I think the 10T even satisfies my requirements in terms of camera, because that main camera is super solid. And the performance of the rest of the 10T is mind-bogglingly good. And that, the only reason I couldn't use the 10T daily is because I like to wirelessly charge in my car and stuff, and it doesn't have wireless charging. But then there's a 10 Pro. I love OnePlus phones. I generally love BBK Group phones. But I always go back to a Pixel. And, people are like, hey, Samsung, I have an S22 Ultra in my bag all the time. And people are like, how can you not make that your main phone? You have one. They gave it to you, a review unit. If I was in your shoes, I wouldn't be using the Pixel. I'm like, you just do not understand.
Once you flow through the software and it all sort of floats around and you've got these colors and shapes and it's just so clean and nice. It's hard to put into words. I mean, I know we do it as a job, but it's like it's not a technical thing. It's just I pick it up and I enjoy using it. That's all it is.
100%. And with the type of experience we have getting all these phones in our hands, trust us if we say that. Like, look, don't get me wrong. If I had to have this S22 Ultra as my main phone today, oh my God, yes, fantastic phone. I would be happy. It would get the job done. And the cameras are great. In fact, I use the cameras for a lot of my car photography because I like the flexibility of the multiple telephotos. The wide angle is wider. And of course, that's been resolved with the 7 Pro. So I'm really excited about to see if I can do car photography for inside shots with that wider angle. But I'm still going to go to my Pixel most of the time, right? And same with iPhone. Like, I don't have the latest iPhone, but obviously I've tested them. I've used them. They're impressive as hell, but I love video on iPhones. I have an iPhone just to shoot video, but everything else, like iPhone photos kind of leave me cold. I don't know how to, they're okay, but there's something, I don't know. I think this is aesthetic, right? There is a texture to the photos on the Pixel that just appeal to me. And I don't know how to put my finger on it. It's a combination of detail and the way the colors are rendered. It's not warm. It's not
it's golden.
oversaturated.
It's like everything's like golden hour. It's like you've shot everything at golden hour, and everything's got that slightly golden hue, and the colors just sort of pop, but not like hyper real.
Yeah,
oversaturation.
Yeah,
it just
and
looks
it does
good.
HDR so right. Nothing else does HDR quite as well. I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm so used to it now that I'm never gonna go back. I don't know. It's hard to tell. All I know is that's a good segue towards another really impressive camera phone. Which is, we discussed again on last week's show, but I now have it. I've played with it a bit and you reviewed it. I'll put your review up.
Yes, this one here.
Yeah, the Xiaomi 12T Pro. And wow. This phone for the money is really impressive, right?
Yeah, it is. Exactly. And when they announce things like 200 megapixel sensors and you go, that's a lot of pixels to put on this little sensor. That's gonna be terrible. And then you use it in daylight, and you're like, that's actually really, really impressive what you can do by zooming into those photos. It really did impress me while I was in Munich with the launch event.
Have you shot mostly in 200 megapixel mode then, or have you shot using the computational pixel binning features?
Yeah, I've used both. When I was out in Munich, obviously, at the event, I tried to shoot. I would switch on the RAW mode with 200 megapixels and then switch back to auto. And then they both, the colors and the balance look similar. But then once you do that 200 megapixel zoom and you zoom in and you see the detail.
Holy crap. Yeah. But you need light, right? You need some decent light because the pixels are only 0.64 microns. It even gives you a warning when you load it up the first time. It goes, you're going to need daylight for this mode. If you haven't got daylight, then it's not going to work. Right.
Yeah.
So it does 16:1 pixel binning, right? By default,
yes.
I believe. And then it does 4:1 pixel binning when you get to a certain, like 2x or something, right?
Yeah.
Because it gives you, and then beyond that, I guess can it shoot at 4x at 1:1? Do we know? Because
Possibly.
that's been a thing, right? Apple made a big fuss about the ability to do lossless by taking the center part of their 48 megapixel sensor on the 14 Pro, and Google, just did that with the Pixel 7s, 2x that's lossless and 10x on the telephoto that's lossless. And so I'm wondering if they're doing that also on. I haven't tested it, but it'd be interesting to find. That means you could get in good light 4x zoom with. That's completely lossless.
Yeah, I haven't actually tried that yet, but yeah, that in theory, that's how it should be. And it almost makes me think maybe that's the way we're going with phone cameras now. They just load out loads of pixels. They don't put a telephoto zoom lens on it, and they just crop into these sensors, and they just get better and better and better over time.
It's good if in daylight, but at night, every time you stop binning, you get worse performance, right? Yeah. That's the other thing, which I think having an optical zoom still makes a lot of sense for. But overall, I mean, this is a Xiaomi phone, so you get the Xiaomi user experience, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's fine. It's snappy. It's got a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. It's got tons of RAM and storage. It just feels nice in hand. The display is not complicated. They didn't go crazy with some sort of curved edge or LTPO. This is 120 hertz, 1220p, which is a really interesting resolution.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And it's flat. Yes, a flat screen on a flagship. Right. The only qualms I have with that phone are three of them. And again, this is kind of this maybe US-centric perspective. Here in the US, because iPhones and Samsungs, especially the flagships, which pretty much everybody can buy subsidized, are so popular, wireless charging is a thing. Like, probably not in most people's homes, but in other areas, like in your car. Every car, like even the cheapest Hyundai or Kia, has a pad in it nowadays. And so it's not something you need, but when you've had it and you no longer have it, you miss it and you notice it. And I feel like this phone, for this price particularly, it's a good price, but it's still pretty high. It's higher than the 10T from OnePlus, should have a Qi on it, even if it's just basic Qi. That's just me. But I feel like the other thing that I would like to see is a metal frame. It's a plastic frame. Again, the OnePlus 10T is the same way. And I'm like, it's cheapening out the experience of what your flagship brings to the table, Xiaomi. Now, you're going to say this is a T series. It's the affordable flagship series from Xiaomi. But I'm like, come on, you could have done something there. Last thing is that 2 megapixel macro sticker cam that's completely useless. They should
just get rid of them.
Please, it's like the OnePlus 10T. Please just don't bother, because you can pull out and take a zoomed in shot with a main sensor. That's going to be 1,000,000 times better. Yeah. Like, I don't understand it.
No, I think we're seeing it less and less these days. I think companies are starting to get wise to it, that we're not happy with them doing this all the time. But it just gets even more frustrating when this happens and you get a third lens that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, you're paying for a third lens. It looks good on specs if you're not paying attention, and then you realize it's completely useless. It might as well be a sticker. This is why I call them sticker cams.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was a depth sensor or maybe a monochrome lens, I could kind of see some potential appeal. But we know those macros, because they're fixed focus and a crappy sensor, are not going to deliver a good experience. Spend the extra money on putting autofocus on the ultra wide and give us macro photography that way. And even that ultra wide, if I really want to be picky and a stickler, I feel the same way as the 10T, right? It's like an 8 megapixel basic ultra wide, basically like the same as you'd find on a Moto G series on a flagship, guys.
Yeah, I feel the same. It's like they put this one great lens and then they just put these other ones that sort of tarnish the experience a little bit. And you're like, why? Yeah. Why not just have the big 200 megapixel lens on its own, get rid of the other two, and just go, look at this amazing camera? Yeah. Instead of like what they've done.
But if you look at it in the face of everything, you get a phone that costs 799 roughly euros, US dollars. Same, they're about the same right now. And that has 120 watt charging and a 200 megapixel camera that is, not the best camera, but it's definitely not a gimmick. Like, it turns out that I haven't tested the Moto, which is the other phone with a 200 megapixel camera out there. But I have a feeling that based on my experience, Moto's camera tuning is going to suck and we're going to be disappointed. Whereas Xiaomi's camera tuning has always been pretty solid, especially since they have the Leica partnership now in China. This is not Leica branded because it's a global product. But honestly, This phone, yeah, definitely. If you're out there and you live in Cam's part of the woods there, or you're in Asia, I haven't tested it enough yet to see if there's 5G in the US. Some Chinese phones are now delivering 5G on T-Mobile because some of the bands overlap, which is great. But it's kind of a hit and miss if you're in this market in North America.
Yeah. I think, like you said, I think the thing that really impacts my experience of using the phone, you've mentioned already, the 120 watt charging. Like, because then you just don't have to plug it in at night anymore. You just wait till the battery's like 5%, plug it in for 15 minutes.
Take a shower, come back, and it's charged.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
The brick, though, that brick, oh my God.
Oh, yeah. Is it like the size of a laptop
you
charger?
You could kill your enemy by throwing that brick onto their head. Like, seriously, it's that heavy. It's that dense. It's kind of incredible. Do you want to carry that in your bag all day? I don't know. That's another question. But I think the future is inevitably of every phone charging at 240 watt anyway. So let's get used to that, you know?
Yeah, let's get to that speed.
I'm looking forward to Anker, to think standardizing, first of all, with the high-speed charging systems. And Anker starting to make, very small chargers like they do right now, tiny little 60 watt laptop chargers that are going to charge our phones at 120, 180 watts. And that way we don't have to carry these big bricks around. But of course, that won't work with the proprietary stuff. So let's hope that things can standardize somewhat. It'd be really interesting to see all the Chinese makers right now get together and say, hey, let's standardize this, because they're all kind of doing the same thing. But,
with slightly different iterations.
Correct.
Yeah,
so I kind of feel like we're starting to see that aggregation happen within BBK Group, for example, where, Realme, Oppo, and OnePlus are using the same chargers, VOOC, even though I think Realme still calls it something else, and obviously OnePlus used to call it something else. But I think that Vivo is still doing their own thing, but I think that should be integrated, in my opinion. And of course, all of Xiaomi Group is using the same stuff too. In Xiaomi's, for a while there, Xiaomi's high-speed chargers were compatible with the Huawei's. So I think they were licensing Huawei's tech. So again, we're very close to potentially having all of this converge. If Qualcomm has 100 watt quick charge or whatever the name they call it, and that's the only real standard we have that's 100 watt or more. But I kind of feel that shouldn't be coming from Qualcomm or MediaTek. This should be coming from just the industry getting together and going, hey, let's get this done. Let's get this done. Let's do this, and let's make sure it's PD compatible backwards, so that big brick, like OnePlus's bricks, charge my laptop at 65 watt.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
know if you've had any of Huawei's laptops, but they ship with a charger which is essentially just a big phone charger. So that's kind of cool.
That's super cool.
It still only has the one Type-C port. I'm like, just put two in there.
Yeah, put two.
And I can do my phone and my laptop at the same time. Why not?
So while Microsoft had a big event on the same day as the Pixel embargo, it's hilarious. What's your takeaway? I'm just going to put a link to The Verge. I did a nice recap where you can see all the products. I mean, just rapid firing through them. There is essentially a Surface Laptop 5, a Surface Pro 9, which comes in Intel and ARM flavors. ARM has 5G, a Surface Studio 2 Plus, and that's pretty much it in terms of hardware.
Yeah, and I think the more exciting of all those for me personally is the Surface Pro 9 with the ARM-based chipset, which is like, because I've used older Snapdragon-based laptops, like one of the first-gen HPs, and I'm like, having a laptop where the battery lasts literally a full workday.
It's amazing.
It's brilliant. So if they can do that on a Surface Pro, and still give you the same sort of performance and features that you expect from a Surface and the build quality, that's going to be amazing. And 5G.
I want it. Yeah.
Yeah,
and so
it sounds fantastic.
Apparently, Qualcomm and Microsoft got together again, and they don't like to talk too much about this. They're kind of a little skittish about this conversation, but they are working together on these chips, which are basically variations on the Snapdragon compute chips. I know they don't want me to say that, but it's true. And so this is the latest iteration of that. And of course, it has integrated 5G. And so it's really interesting because you can buy the Surface 9 with Pro with Intel, I think with 12th gen, 13th gen, whatever it is, the current one.
12th on the Pro 9, yeah.
And then you can get this, what do they call it? Microsoft, what's the chip
SQ3.
SQ3, thank you. SQ3 with 5G. And I'm actually excited that Microsoft is in kind of mixing up the two Surface lineups to be one, because that means they're a little more confident about Windows on ARM. Because I feel like what's really stopped me from experiencing the same I've experienced with my MacBook Air M1, and now I have an M2, this incredible performance and battery life combination that's fanless and ultra light. I want that in the PC world, but I'm not convinced Intel will ever deliver that. And I know right now the pitchforks are rising. There's a lot of Intel fans out there. I'm sorry, folks. I'm an ARM person. I predicted 2 decades ago that the future was ARM, 100% ARM. I couldn't believe it when Intel sold their X-Scale division, which was their ARM division. I was like, that is the biggest strategic mistake you're making, Intel. Like, don't get me wrong. The x86 architecture has its place in servers, in workstations, in gaming laptops. But for the light and thin, nothing will ever in x86 land ever, mark my words, come close to ARM, because ARM keeps evolving even further. Yeah. And so to me, it's a no-brainer for Microsoft to just grab the reins of this train and go, okay, we're fully committed to an ARM version for our low-power, lightweight devices. Yet they're not really doing that. And so this is kind of like a more timid version of taking those reins. And I feel that's important. And hopefully we see more of that. I know Samsung makes some ARM-based Windows laptops. And I know that, there's other brands out there. But I feel like I want more.
It's good for, like you say, it's good for Microsoft to do it because this is their platform, right? They've got to show what they're capable of in the way that Pixel has to do that for Android. But then again, it's a lot of it's down to like neural processing as well, isn't it? Is there not a second neural processing chip or something on there for doing fancy stuff? Like it does auto noise
cancellation when you talk. It does, the enhancements to the camera. All the stuff you have on M1 and M2 MacBook. Surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and then if it's again one of those instances, isn't it, where Apple sort of kicked it off and went, Intel's not good enough for where we see MacBook going, and we've shown what we can do with an iPad Pro and an iPhone and how powerful they are.
Yeah,
and they're just phones and tablets. Yeah, if we stuck that in a computer.
Yeah, amazing. And now they're doing like the Mac Studio, which is just like holy crap. Like, so they're also trying to show that you can even do ARM at the workstation level, which I think is ballsy, and there can only be recommended. Like kudos to Apple for that. I think I'm all in on ARM, and even at the higher performance levels, I feel like I really want to see a tipping point where maybe, and I'm calling it now, and within 5 years we're going to see a tipping point where gaming PCs are going to be ARM-based. Mark my words.
Okay.
And when that happens, holy crap balls. Those Intel people are going to be so pissed. I'm not saying Intel, AMD, x86 people are going to be so pissed. But it's inevitable. There's nothing you can do here, guys. There's nothing you can do to stop progress. A complex instruction set architecture is not designed to be efficient and fast and good. It's not going to happen.
No, I agree. And I think it's interesting, isn't it, how Intel recently announced their own dedicated GPUs as well, because
there you go.
They need to get into this other market
cores.
now.
They're modeling themselves after the, big little thing that ARM brought in, a decade ago. Look, they can continue to string this along, or they can be wise and start mixing some ARM cores with some x86 cores. That would be cool. Imagine x86 cores for compatibility for long old software. If you're a business company that has some old legacy software that needs x86 and just doesn't perform that well in emulation, imagine some kind of hybrid. I just want Intel to just grow up and admit that, look, ARM is a valid thing. We should also be doing that too. Like, I'm not saying drop x86. Push it to the limit. There's always more that can be done, but just get on board. Like, you're not going to lose your core business. Like, come on. Because if Intel did it, the manufacturers would stop arguing about it. You wouldn't see HP and Compaq and whoever else it is now. Compaq is HP. Dell is what I'm thinking about. going like, oh, look, we made Intel, 13 Gen. Like you wouldn't have that. You'd be like, here's a computer. It's freaking awesome. It has an Intel chip in it. And you wouldn't have to worry about it. It just work really well. Right?
How often do we see that in our industry, though, where there's a company who's stuck doing certain things a certain way, and then somebody comes out and does something new, and instead of innovating and going with the times, they just sort of go where they dig their heels in and wait too long.
I mean, I think that Intel's changing a little bit with their new CEO. I think there's some progress, and I think that this is such almost a religious, like, political thing in some ways, in the sense that like for their own culture, right, that they can't like break free of this x86 obsession. But I feel like he's probably slowly trying to change the tides culturally. I think it's a cultural shift that needs to happen within Intel. Like Intel has some of the best engineers in the world. There's no doubt about that. Their know-how is superb. I just want to see them apply themselves to something meaningful. And I don't think x86 is as meaningful as ARM. And that's why I want to see Intel make an ARM chip. I know that would be the end of the world. Or it would seem that way to a lot of people, but why not? Imagine all this experience. Bring it into the other side. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. So anyway, there's more stuff. The Surface Studio is still an absolutely delightful piece of hardware. I just want one just for the sake of having one.
Just because it looks so cool, right?
My God. Like and then the way it articulates. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a very nice. And then
honestly, this is the thing I want to say. I'm not a PC person, but I've used Windows. I have a bunch of machines running Windows here. I have actually an Surface Pro X here floating around somewhere with the ARM chip. I am a huge fan of the Surface design language and hardware kind of aesthetic. Like I love their laptops. I'm not a huge fan of 2-in-1, so the Surface is not ideally my form factor. But man, the Surface laptops, like the Laptop 5 now, like two different sizes. You can get the deck with Alcantara, aluminum. I just think it's just so hot. Nice. It's so hot.
Even like I had the Surface Go 2, the cheap small one recently, and even that you pick it up and you go, if I was buying a small cheaper Windows laptop, there's nothing in this price point that looks as good as this.
I know Lenovo does some good stuff out of metal on their Chromebooks and stuff for cheap prices. I'm always impressed, but I feel like Microsoft has really kind of taken Apple's lead and applied it to their world in a consistent, aesthetically pleasing and polished way that I don't even think Dell and others can come close to.
No, I think they finally realized that design is important. When it's a personal device that you're carrying in, it's almost a form of personal expression. You want it to look good and you want to feel good when you're using it. Why would you use a big plastic thing with a red dot in the middle? It's just like,
oh yeah, wow. Oh, you're fighting words there, huh? Yeah. No,
I could be talking about anyone.
Yeah, right. I feel the same as you. Like every time I see somebody with a Surface device in their hands, I'm like, you have taste. You know what you're doing. You're selective, and I appreciate that about people. Speaking of big companies doing strange things, I'm going to swear.
You can't even talk about this without laughing.
I know. I'm going to swear here, but f***ing Meta, okay?
Yeah.
Like, I have so many feelings. Do you want to talk about...
I have a feeling. You know what's funny? I this thought came to my head, and I was like, with the new stuff that they announced in terms of the Metaverse and the MetaQuest Pro, I feel like they've gone to all this effort and to all this expense to give you the best possible way to experience the worst possible form of virtual reality that I think I've seen. When you look at it in terms of like games in VR, which are kind of exciting and cool, or the enterprise solutions that I've seen where you can solve really complex mechanical problems, I think those are really cool ways to do VR and AR. And then they think we just want Club Penguin on a $1,500 headset. I'm like,
with legs.
With leg, well, they've got legs now, so that fixes everything.
Here's my quick rant, because I I could do an entire show about this.
Yeah.
Look, guys, I'm not a big fan of VR, and I think AR is more of the future than VR ultimately. A lot of people ask me, like, why are you so anti-VR? And I'm like, it's not the tech. The tech is awesome. Like, I'm a nerd. I love the tech. I appreciate what Meta's trying to do with that new Quest. I think that they're taking the best technologies available today and making the best device they can make. There's no doubt. It's expensive. The price can be debated. I think it's way too much to be.
They're making a loss on it, right? They said they're making a loss.
It's not like it's not going to be. It's not consumer ready yet. Like it has to be $200 to be consumer ready. Like that's the reality. Apple could get away with making it $700 like they did with the Watch Ultra, and that would fly.
Oh yeah.
But $1,500, no, not even Apple could get away with that on a consumer level. So forget that. But my biggest gripe with VR is every time I've used it, whether it's being like a standalone device with very little sensors, or like the highest end Oculus back in the day, PC tethered experience, it's been an absolutely horrendous experience for me. I wear glasses. A lot of the headsets don't adjust properly with the glasses on, and some of them do, and thankfully they're provisioning for that. But I start getting hot and overheating, and my glasses fog up, and it's uncomfortable, and I sweat, especially if I'm moving, and there's this weight on my face, and I can't see things. Like, screw that. Like, who wants to live in a world like that? Who wants to be in that universe? I know some of you play VR games, and especially some of you exercise in VR. There's this whole universe of people. I don't know how you do it. I would be nauseous. I would feel hot and bothered. It's a terrible experience. Are you freaking nuts? Like, I think you're just masochists, okay? Like, working out brings you the endorphins, and you're just relating this good experience. It's just your endorphins. You can get the same by going for a run outside, guys. Like, I'm sorry, okay? Like, this is not something humans want to do. Now, AR is a whole different thing. Like HoloLens, you put essentially a pair of glasses on, and it augments your world. I'm 100% on board. And maybe on the airplane, you have these little, masks you can put on top of your glasses that make it black and dark. And you don't have to stare at the inside of an aluminum tube for 12 hours, and you can play some games and stuff. That I can see a use case for on a $200 pair of glasses that you wear as a consumer device. But until we get to that, none of this is important and matters. And Meta is completely misplaced in thinking that people are going to be interested in doing this, especially when you see the experience they're delivering in terms of software. Yeah. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it is. And I think that the thing that makes me laugh is when they describe it as like, they don't want to just give you a screen. They want to immerse you in this world. But then you are just looking at a screen. Yeah. You're not immersed in a world. It is just a screen, but it's very close to your eyes, and the graphics are childlike.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like, how long did it take them to get Zuckerberg to look? I mean, he kind of looks like an idiot to start with, so, it's kind of hard to make him look less like an idiot. But, like, now they have legs. Again, this is the progress we're seeing. And so, legs. Like, what bothers me the most here is that clearly the majority of people at Meta working on this stuff are not really invested in it. Like, this whole Zuck woke up one day and said, we're going to become a VR company in a metaverse, and the metaverse is the future. And I think the entire company was like, what? What are you talking about? Right? Like, and they have to go along with it, but I don't think they're invested in it. And until you could get the team, as it were, to be passionate about this product, you're never going to succeed. It's never going to happen. It doesn't matter how much Zuck pumps money into that, how much he asks you've seen the stories, his team to dog food the stuff, and you must wear the things for so many hours. Or like, screw that. I'm not going to wear VR glasses for, like, can you imagine having to go to work wearing these, or wearing these at home as a part of your work? It'd be a nightmare. I'm sorry. Like, can anybody convince me otherwise?
I don't think so. And I think even like when talking about the interface, it's like when you've seen like Ready Player One, and then you look at the metaverse, and you think this is kind of what they should be aiming for.
Yeah.
But whether that's even possible yet, who knows? But when you compare that idea, the ideological version of the immersion in the VR world that you think you want to get to eventually, and then they deliver this, which is like Second Life from 20 years ago?
Yeah, it feels like you're looking at the internet circa 1995 here. Like, here's my best analogy. Watch the one of the first MTV videos, Dire Straits' Money for Nothing.
I knew you were going to say
this
that.
This is exactly what this reminds me of. Right? Yeah.
Great song, great video. That was made in 1984. Yeah.
Man, this song is epic. The guitar piece on this song is amazing. I mean, it's Mark Knopfler, of course.
Yeah, of course.
All right, folks, let's finish up the show. I want to quickly mention that MediaTek has a new chip out, the Dimensity 1080. Cam, what is your take on that chip real quick?
Quickly, I think it's exciting that the big thing that I took from it was that it's going to enable those 200 megapixel cameras to come to mid-range phones.
Oh, it's inevitable.
So it's going to come to like a $300
every cheap phone now has a
phone.
50 megapixel, some have 108 megapixel. Bring on the cheap 200 megapixel sensors with 0.5 microns that suck.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's what we're going to see next year. That'll be 200 megapixel, $300, $400 phones.
And we can thank MediaTek for that. No, look, okay, I'm going to be honest and say that I'm actually excited about this because, look, MediaTek's doing the right thing. It's trying to democratize the flagship features at an affordable price point. Kudos to them. It's not their fault that Moto is probably going to pick the cheapest OmniVision 200 megapixel sensor that's around the corner, and we know because this OmniVision is going to suck, right? Like because their image processing isn't good, it's going to suck. It's not MediaTek's fault, but it's going to happen. So prepare yourself. Yeah. But look, this chip does not have millimeter wave, so it's not like the 1050. It does have, however, it's very similar to the Dimensity 920, but with basically support for higher resolution cameras. In a nutshell. Yeah. Right.
Basically, yeah. Because even the cores, the processing cores are virtually identical, aren't they? So
correct.
Yeah.
So that's the news, folks. Cam, do you want to tell people where they can find you on the internet, your various social media handles, and, pimp out Pocket-lint? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, on social media, I'm at Cam Bunton. I'm on YouTube also. I host the Pocket-lint YouTube channel, so you can find me on there if you just search for Pocket-lint. So, yeah, all good.
Yeah, so, folks, go read and watch the YouTube channel. Go read Pocket-lint. And you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankgirl. That's TNKGRL, both on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to chat with me and Cam about this show, do it on Twitter. That'd be great. If you want to see pretty pictures of phones, pretty pictures taken with phones, and pretty pictures of, cars and travel and food, all the stuff on my Instagram, go to my Instagram, same handle, Tankgirl, like the comic book, drop the vowels, TNKGRL. YouTube has a couple of channels dedicated to the podcast, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast and youtube.com/mobiletechmore. I don't know why I have two channels these days. I question that all the time, but one of them is all the phones and watches and earbuds, basically all the directly immediate ecosystem to the phone. And then the other one is kind of like all the other stuff, travel tech, car tech, home tech, etc. So subscribe, like, tell your friends, click the little notification bell. You know how YouTube work, comment, all that good stuff. The podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com or on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, everywhere good podcasts can be found. So please subscribe, tell the world, share the link on Twitter that I'll put up when this goes up on Sunday. And of course, there's a Patreon. You can help with Patreon if you want to financially help me. You get a video version of the podcast. That's why we were showing our watches earlier. And those of you listening, you can get the show ahead of time on video with Cam's face and my face and our watches. It'll be fun. So consider subscribing to the Patreon, patreon.com/Tankgirl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. There are other prizes you can win. Perks. There is a Discord channel you can join to chat with me. There is a bunch of other perks. Check it out. Please support if you can. It really helps with this podcast. If you don't like Patreon, I get it. There is a PayPal link in the show notes. You can click through there and buy me a coffee or something, $5 or whatever. Be great. So help if you can. And also want to thank Audible, our sponsor. Audible has been with the show since the early days. They're fantastic. And there's a special deal for you. We have a 30-day free trial. You get to keep a book at the end. This is for people who are not with Audible already. But here's the reason you want to be with Audible. First, let me give you the URL. It's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. But if you're like me and you love books and you just never get around to reading because you're working, your eyes are tired, you're whatever it might be, it's changed my life to be able to listen to books instead of reading them, because it suits my lifestyle so much better. And I love books, so I miss them. So Audible delivers. They They have a whole bunch of books, of course, to choose from. They have books read by the authors. They have some short stories and shorter content. They also have some like exclusive and unique podcasts. So there's a whole bunch of things you can get on Audible for this very low subscription. I've been a member forever. And, if you want to become a member, you can also help the podcast by doing so. So 3 for, I guess, you get books and you help the podcast and you help Audible as well. So consider that, audibletrial.com/mobiletech. I want to thank Audible again for being our longtime sponsor, and you, Cam, for being on the show finally. Thanks for joining us.
I know. No problem. Thank you for having me. It's been a good time.
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely have you on the podcast in the future. And folks, we have a show coming up next week, so stay tuned for that. And until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.